Islam's grown really fast in Australia. I think it's up to 3.2% of the population now. But if you went back 10 or 15 years, it wasn't anything like that. It was half the size. So we've got 1 million Muslim Australians basically, and there's no Islamic Bank, so it doesn't make sense. I've always wanted to help the community, and so many of my friends are of the Islamic faith, and for the first time they'll be able to bank in line with their faith, which is really important. We've never had that before.
I don't want the next generation of Muslims to go through the suffering that I went through. And I grew up without Islamic finance products and services, and I know how difficult it is.
I mean, I did a radio interview in Perth not long ago on one of the big talkback stations there, and was just explaining how Islamic banking works, and afterwards the producer said the switchboard has gone nuts. People are so excited. They think this is absolutely brilliant because it's the bank and the customer at the end of the day are sharing as partners in the risk-reward trade-off that's associated with it, and we've never had that in Australia before.
Welcome to the Out of Interest podcast. Today's episode is a mega episode. We have two titans of the industry. In the industry, I mean the Islamic finance industry. We are joined by Dean Gillespie, CEO of Islamic Bank Australia. We are also joined by none other than Hakan Ozyon, CEO of Hejaz. He's also my father, so I'm not going to call him dad, daddy or anything. I usually call him boss man, so for this purpose of the podcast, I'm going to still call him, I'm going to refer to you as boss man, and you're Dean. All right, I'm going to refer to you as Dean.
Sounds fine. That's fine. Absolutely fine.
That's fine.
Dean, honestly, I'm going to be truthful with you. When we launched the podcast, or before we launched the podcast, me and Muzamil would sit down and be like, who are we going to bring on to the podcast as a guest? And I must admit, your name wasn't there. Because we saw you as a rival.
Yep.
Right, because Islamic Bank Australia, Hejaz, we finance boys, and these guys are our enemies, right? Now we're friends.
We are.
We're friends now.
We are.
How are we friends, Dean? Do you want to share it with us?
Well, look, firstly, thanks for the invite to this fantastic podcast, which I have seen before. Very professional, and it's great to be here. But, we've decided to form a strategic investment partnership together between both the bank and Hejaz. And, obviously, hopefully we are the titans of the Islamic finance industry. And so it's really exciting for us to be here today.
Now, being partners with Hejaz right now, has the vision changed for the bank, or are we still on track to become what you guys set out to be?
No, I mean, we're not changing strategically what we're doing. I mean, we've always had the vision of being Australia's first Islamic bank, a full-service retail and business bank, so offering Sharia-compliant banking products for the first time in Australia. So we're not changing that plan. We think it's a really good plan, and it's for us, it's more about how do we partner with such a fantastic organisation like Hejaz, and how can we work together to really ensure that we're offering great products across the whole community.
Yeah. Now, Hakan, I want to, boss man, rather.
Don't want to
call you Hakan, get in trouble at home.
Man.
Boss man, I want to ask you, Islamic Bank Australia, with a lot of other Islamic finance providers out there, what, I guess, enticed you to partner with Islamic Bank Australia?
Look, when I set out this path over a decade ago, my intention was to give the best possible products we can and services to the Islamic community possible. And what we saw with the IBA, Islamic Bank of Australia offering, and the staff that we saw, we had a good discussion with them. I saw what we can do together could provide what I dreamed of over a decade ago. So it was an obvious bond. It was an obvious connection that we can do. Yes, we know that Hejaz has done certain things for the community over a certain period of time, but I just feel like the Islamic Bank of Australia just takes it up a notch more. Yeah. And that partnership, for me, it's in the best interest of the Islamic community. For me, that's what it's all about. It's not about our personal things. It's not. And I always said that anyone going down this path in the Islamic community, right, be it Islamic finance, be it anything else, should care about the community first. Yeah. That always takes precedence over anything. And for us, it was an obvious decision to partner up and become a strategic investment partner with Islamic Bank Australia. I think it will be the best interest of the Islamic community, and hence why we went down that path.
Because you released a media release, I think a year ago, that Hejaz was going to open up its own bank.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess that bank is not happening because of this strategic partnership?
Absolutely. I mean, right now the market, as I said before, it's about providing for the Islamic community what we think. There's no point in now us going down the path of trying to get another bank when we already have one bank in the market. So for us, it's very easy to have my pride and say, you know what, no, I'm going to build my own bank. All right, but for me, it's about what's best for the community.
Yeah.
So yes, they've already got a bank. They've got great people on board already, as we see with Dean. I have full confidence in Dean and the board and the staff at the Islamic Bank Australia. And we said, you know what, instead of us going down the path of getting another bank, all right, and having pride, I said, no. They've already got an established bank and they've got a license now. Let's support that as a community and as an organisation.
Because I don't know, if you had your own bank as well, it's 2 banks, man. It's a bit greedy of you.
Exactly. I'm not that sort of person to put myself or the company before the community.
Yeah.
It's always about community.
I want to bring Muzammil into the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're not a guest here, you're my co-host, but you are the shittier guy of Hejaz, right? I'm going to say the shittier guy. And the halal man. Obviously, you're going to be part of the bank as well. That's an exciting challenge for you.
Oh, very much so. I think it's a great opportunity for the Muslim community to unite under a shared banner, and for us to be able to deliver as a collective a solution that the Muslim community really, really requires. For a long time, Australian Muslims have been confused.
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of this little tit for tat between different providers, people saying this one's better, that one's better, this is. I think having a bank there will clarify a lot for our community and say, look, you know what, this is what a banking proposition looks like. Yeah. This is how it works. This is how it's funded. This is how the product is structured. So for me, with the Sharia background, I think it would be a really unique challenge. Yeah. I think there's a lot that we can learn from a lot of overseas partners.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of really successful Islamic banking operations in other countries that we can take a leaf out of their book. We don't have to really reinvent the wheel. But also in Australia as well, there's a really robust regulatory environment under APRA, and those and all the regulators here that will provide us with a really good framework that we can work within, and obviously apply the Islamic overlay to deliver, market-leading products and services. So
100%.
Should be fun.
Yeah. Now, Dean, I know Mazza's eager to ask questions, but one last question before Mazza comes into play. Are you Australian?
Yes,
You're Australian.
Yes.
You're not Muslim.
No, I'm not.
You're CEO of Islamic Bank Australia.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? Do you think that has a Muslim community embraced it?
Yeah, look, I think so. I mean, I've been working on this. I started on this as a volunteer.
Right. Okay.
Probably 2016 or 2017 or somewhere in there. So I've been working on this probably 7 or 8 years now, 6 or 7 years.
Right.
And it's it's a cause that I'm really passionate about. I mean, you've got 1 million Muslim Australians basically, and there's no Islamic bank, so it doesn't make sense. So I mean, I come from a traditional banking background in Australia. I ran mortgages at Bank West and did some sort of key strategic roles in Asia and things. But I've always wanted to help the community, and so many of my friends are Muslim of the Islamic faith, and for the first time they'll be able to bank in line with their faith, which is really important. We've never had that before, and as you articulated, there's Islamic banks all over the world. You go to like the UK, which is a Western market as well, and there's 6 or 7 different Islamic banks,
100%.
but we just don't have anything in Australia at the moment. So, for me personally, it's really important, and I've spent a lot of time not even just on driving the bank, but also trying to drive reforms that we need to have in Australia. Like I wrote to all of the state and territory premiers calling for reforms on stamp duty and those sorts of things. You're quite lucky we're here in obviously Melbourne and Victoria, where you actually do have legislative exemptions around sort of stamp duty, but in most other states around Australia you don't have that. And so Tasmania's changed their legislation off the back of our letter. ACT's changed now. I'm meeting with the Chief Commissioner of Revenue New South Wales tomorrow to talk about how we fix it in New South Wales as well. So there's stuff that we've always been trying to do, but I'm just really passionate about it and getting it done. So.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. In terms of your interactions with the Muslim community overall, so you said that you have Muslim friends, interacted with them prior to the IBA journey. What perceptions about this community did you go into this project with, and how have they shifted or have they changed now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly my knowledge of Islam has grown and evolved over time. I've learned a lot from a lot of people, including you. But no, I mean, it's Australia is such a wonderful, diverse, multicultural society, and there's people of all different types of religions. There's people of all different types of nationalities and backgrounds as well. And the one thing, I mean, I've worked in different markets in different countries as well. People are people. People are people. They care about their families. They think about, how do I educate my kids? How do I make sure that I can afford cost of living and that sort of stuff? And we took the view very early on that, we wanted to target our products at the Australian community, and the fact that people are of the Islamic faith and they want to take up Sharia compliant product is important, but it's not the only thing. in the life of a Muslim. There's it's your religion is just part of who you are, right? So we've always been very cautious, and my team's probably a mix, 50-50 of people of the Islamic faith and people that aren't Muslim. So, but everyone's really passionate about what we're trying to do. So.
You mentioned that you've learned a lot about Islam as a career banker. What about Islamic banking and finance has impressed you the most?
I think the fundamental principles that underpin it are just lovely. I think one of the things that we've decided to do, obviously we won't be banking any of the haram sort of prohibited industries, for obvious reasons, but we're going to take it further from a corporate social responsibility aspect. And so we won't be banking big polluters or live animal exports or some of those other industries as well. But if you look at the underlying financial structures, that the fact that you can't deal with riba and interest, it's kind of based on these really lovely principles in terms of the fact that if you're lucky enough to have capital, other people you shouldn't be taking advantage of other people by just giving them money and forcing them to pay you interest, no matter what the underlying business risk return is that's associated with that. And so actually when you explain it to, I obviously explain it, what I do to my friends that are not of the Islamic faith, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. That's really, really good. So I think one of the things that we're going to have to focus on, and Hejaz have no doubt done a whole heap of work in this space already, is actually education of the Australian community, because the Muslim community in Australia is, quite a young community. They, 40% I think grew up in Australia, so they won't necessarily have been exposed to Islamic banking products in Australia yet. And so you might talk about mudarabas and murabahas and diminishing musharakas, but they won't necessarily know what that is. So part of what we've got to do, I think, is the education piece, and for those people that are banking with traditional conventional banks here in Australia, how do we just convince them and get them to shift across to Islamic Bank Australia?
Yeah.
Because you've come from conventional banking,
Yes.
so you clearly could see the difference between Islamic and non-Islamic. And a lot of people assume that Islamic and non-Islamic is the same thing, but you did see the difference.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I look the underlying structure. So they can actually, if you don't look at them in detail, the structure and the way that they operate looks quite similar. But the fact of the matter is, it's the underlying structure, which is often the ownership of the asset that's sitting at the end of the. So if you're talking about like a diminishing musharaka, for example, so for a home finance, right, which is, or diminishing partnership, traditionally at a conventional bank, obviously you would go to one of the big four banks or whoever you go to, they give you the cash and then you buy the property. And so you've borrowed the money off the bank, right? In something like a diminishing musharaka, it would be like shared equity or joint ownership at the start. And that's the difference in the underlying structure. So the cash never flowed to you first for you to buy the asset 100%. The cash went from the bank simultaneously with you to buy the asset jointly, and then you buy shares off them over time, and then obviously we charge you rent because you're living as a tenant in that property. So but it actually mathematically, without getting technical, it amortizes in the same way as a P&I loan, right? So if you look at it at face level, you'll go, oh, it's the same thing, it's smoke and mirrors, and you hear that a little bit in the community, which is unfortunate. But the underlying structure is completely different. And it avoids, the fact that you are dealing with riba. So that's what I mean. I think some of this will have to be a bit of an education piece as we go through. But
No, you're spot on. He's learned it really well.
Yeah, you did.
For an Aussie career banker, you figured it all out. Good stuff.
I know, it's funny, I'm the CEO of the Islamic Bank, so I kind of had to learn this stuff, right?
It's spot on. And the way I usually explain it, and obviously we all receive similar feedback from our community about, sometimes you do hear people saying it's smoke and mirrors, it's all one and the same. Ironically, it's usually the people who don't qualify for the product who have those issues, funnily enough. But the way we usually explain it to them also is that from a Sharia perspective, from an Islamic law perspective, Islamic laws govern the process undertaken to achieve an outcome, not the outcome in and of itself. So they'll look at, for example, how you fund a transaction, how you structure a deal, and how you go about, building towards that outcome. And sometimes our community, be it due to a lack of financial literacy or whatever it is, may just say, okay, well, at the end of the day, the look and feel of the end outcome is of a particular nature, and therefore I make my decision or pass a judgment based on just the end outcome. And I say, well, you've overlooked the entire process that's been undertaken to arrive at that, which you've very, very well articulated very well just now. So, no, you're right, spot on. And I think Hakan can speak to this quite a bit as well, about the fact that we've embarked on a long, long journey of educating our community. We always say that it's an uphill battle on two sides, right? On one side, you're trying to deliver really robust, high-quality financial products and services, but at the same time, you're trying to build an awareness about the need for these and how they all work. So it is significant investment that I think we all make into upskilling our community to better derive outcomes.
That's right.
I think you touched on it just before about, certain members of the community don't qualify, and hence why it's just very easy for them to just shoot it down.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we took this strategic partnership is also that we can provide overall a complete offering.
Yeah.
The banking, the asset management, everything combined. Now the Islamic community in Australia, inshallah, if Allah permits, they're going to have a comprehensive offering. And it should be, it's pretty much very competitive with the conventional market out there. So I'm hoping, that all the Muslims in Australia embrace this, and they should hopefully have no reason why not to come to Islam and to halal. Because as we all know, the foundations of Islam is all about halal. If you're having your earnings and your wealth generated in a non-Islamic way, pretty much everything else goes out the door, as we know. Well, you're the mufti, you should know this better than anyone, but essentially that's what we try to provide. And our goal at Hejaz at the start was to try to take every Muslim out of haram. Yeah. So now this is just providing going to that next level of offerings.
Yeah. The problem that I could potentially see is the conventional banks are very solidified in this country. Yeah, they got the best tech. They have good customer support, customer service, and their marketings are on point. And then you're gonna bring in a product that's never been done in Australia. So you're gonna all of a sudden change the mindset of people. Then hey, there's an Islamic bank offering. Dean, are you confident that Islamic banking could, I guess, be on par with the conventional banking in terms of technology and the support that you guys will give to customers for them to move?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, well, first I got to start with,
before
I'm not
you
convinced
start,
that the
it
Big
is
Four
annoying
are.
to change. Yeah. It is annoying to change banks though,
Yeah,
right? I've
of
done
course.
it once, and it's like I ain't changing banks again.
Yeah.
So what's
Yeah,
is
look,
it- is the
100%.
halal factor going to be the only selling point?
No, it won't be. I mean, your point's exactly well made. I mean, the first thing I'd say is I don't actually think customer
Yeah.
service and technology is that great at the big banks. I think it's actually pretty appalling.
Right.
But no, that's okay. Where I was going with that is you're 100% right. People are really sticky with their banks. Like it's actually
100%.
something we've done a whole heap of research on. Across the industry, people don't like changing banks. It seems like a big pain. There's some structural things that the government's try to do around that, like pay IDs, where you can just shift your pay ID and then you don't have to worry about all of your direct debits and that. But the point is, we'll obviously be completely Sharia compliant. We're going to keep the whole ecosystem clean from a funding perspective and that. But that's not enough.
Yeah.
People are used to dealing with other banks and a great digital experience that they get at other banks, and the fact that they do have customer service and things. So we have to hit the mark on all of those things. The big advantage that we do actually have is we don't have any legacy, so we can actually build our systems from scratch with fantastic user experience. We map them out on walls and make sure that what we're building is 100% right. And we'll tweak it over time. We get customer feedback as we go, but that's part of the marketing plan. Is we've got to get out there with really good product, Sharia compliant, but also an incredible digital experience as well, and then convince people that they should switch.
That's a good point you made, because you start from scratch. A lot of these big banks, for them to change
They've
the whole
got systems
system,
to-
it's virtually impossible.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Or it's going to be very costly to do. Boss man, what benefit can IBA receive from Hejaz?
Benefit from Hejaz?
Tell us that.
Well, I think it works both ways. It's not just one way here. Obviously, Hejaz has been in the community for a long time. We've built a relatively good brand. We've got a lot of trust of the community. Look, at the end of the day, the same way that we want to build the best of the breed, and that's what we've been chasing for so long for now, Hejaz. We want to be the best that we'll try to do. And the most importantly, we want the community to be proud. All right, and I think that's where it is. I think we want the community to take ownership of the brand, be it Islamic Bank Australia, be it Hejaz, whatever the case is. Take ownership, and this is yours. Now, you were just mentioning before to Dean about moving from conventional banks, be it Commonwealth Bank, be it whatever bank it is. It's sticky, as we just mentioned before. But at the end of the day, this is ours. This is the community's. Okay. One thing that we can relay to Dean and the team at Islamic Bank Australia is, the community, we're all one. Regardless of the internal issues that we have, I know there's all these things that we can discuss. Put that all aside, we are one. And we should go on the common umbrella here. And there is only one bank, okay? Hejaz, we have partnered up with Islamic Bank Australia, essentially because, we don't want to have friction, we don't want to have rivalries in this space or anywhere in the Muslim community. We want everyone to be under the one banner. As I said, we could have gone and opened up the Hejaz Bank, Okay. Yes, we've built some certain infrastructure that obviously we can pass on to the Islamic Bank of Australia because they can leverage off that. There's no issues there, and they have certain things that we can learn as well. Okay. But at the end of the day, combining two organisations together is more powerful than one. I mean, two separate ones, and rivals. We don't want the Islamic finance industry to become like we are in the community where there's all these little frictions. Let's just unite under one banner, all right? This is going to be the Islamic community in Australia's one bank. I can't stress enough. And whatever Hejaz has to offer to Islamic Bank of Australia, we'll definitely pass it on. Because at the end of the day, we want the community to benefit from this, okay? Ultimately, there's no holding back anymore. We have made this strategic move, Hejaz, all right? As an organisation, we made this move. We are now all in with Islamic Bank of Australia, all right? And we want that to be the one bank, and everyone should be uniting under that one banner. It's our bank. It's the one community. Forget, you're saying about moving, a sticky in the Commonwealth Bank, this and that. People find it hard to leave their accountant. But at the end of the day, they do leave, don't they? There are times when they leave their accountant, they leave their lawyers. This is a bank. This is halal we're talking about here. There is no compromise. You can't play around with this.
So I'm assuming you're going to be the first customer of maybe.
If they see me as privileged, 100% I will. I'll be customer number one. Because as I said, I was born in Australia. I was born here right in Melbourne, okay? And I grew up without Islamic finance products and services, and I know how difficult it is. All right? I know through all my life I've never got a loan simply, and I had to grow my wealth by raising cash, and I know how difficult that is. I don't want the next generation of Muslims to go through the suffering that I went through. Okay? So we should all embrace this, and we should all come under that, and let's forget anything else, any frictions, anything else. Let's just unite under this.
Yeah. What would you say? I'll ask both of you. We'll start with you, Bossman, because you're giving this great, passionate speech. What would you say to those people that just refuse to believe in Islamic finance?
Look, at the end of the day, I'm not here to change people's decisions. Okay? Now, I'm the sort of guy that can be a little bit ruthless on that answer. Now, I will be ruthless. I'll say what I think about that. At the end of the day, I'm not going to give him a diplomatic answer here. At the end of the day, I always say if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us worthy of going to halal, he'll put us there. If he doesn't see us worthy of going to halal, he'll leave us in haram. As cruel as it sounds, that's the factual. Okay? At the end of the day, we've seen that, and I'm not going to go through all the, I'm sure Mufti Mazza can go through it more than I can. At the end of the day, halal's there, okay? You may or may not believe it's halal, but you do know that the conventional banks are not halal. You know that. Factual. No one's claiming that's halal, okay? So you remaining there, regardless of your skepticism, okay, of the halal bank or the Islamic bank, okay? At the end of the day, we all know that one's claiming it's halal and one's not claiming it's halal. Well, it's clear. If you go to a shop, all right, one takeaway over there selling halal meat or halal food, the other one's not selling halal food, and he says it's not halal, and the other one's saying it's halal, which one are you going to go to? I mean, it's clear as day, yeah? So if you went to two takeaways side by side, one said halal, one said not halal, which one are you going to go to?
That's a good point.
It's clear as day. You're going to go to the halal one. Yeah. You're not going to go to the haram one knowing it's haram.
Yeah.
This is the same. What's the difference? There is no difference here. All right? So at the end of the day, I always put it down to if Allah allows you to go into halal, you can. If He doesn't, you're going to always make an excuse. And the shaitan's going to give you a best dress. He's going to be tricking you saying, no, don't believe it's not halal. So if it's a privilege for us to go into Islam.
No, I agree with that. Dean, do you have a more diplomatic response to that?
Oh, no, look, only that, our intention is to offer Sharia-compliant product, and we're not going to make judgments on anyone, whether or not they take them or not. That's a matter for them individually to do. But, it's clearly the core part of our proposition is to make sure that everything is absolutely halal. We'd be silly not to do that, even from a business perspective. But, we've always said we'll offer those products, and then it's up to people whether or not they want to make the choice to take them out. But
Gents, a question for you both. We live in a world where banks, many large banks, are facing failure. Some of them have failed. And that notion of, a bank being too big to fail is now something of the past, to an extent. A lot of people may have not so much an Islamic skepticism about the Islamic bank proposition, but about security and structural integrity and all those sorts of things come about as well. Because, again, they may be, comfortable where they are, okay, and they understand, okay, yes, from an Islamic perspective, I have to move. But is it safe for me to move? And from that perspective, considering with having a backdrop of various large banks globally failing, and even domestic banks struggling sometimes during different credit conditions and whatnot, what assurances can we provide our community that this is a safe place to house their funds?
Yeah, look, the first comment I'd make is Australia is a very well-regulated banking environment. It's APRA is a very good regulator. They regulate probably better than anyone else in the world, and that's some of these failures that we've had, particularly in the US. It's a completely different sort of construct from a regulatory perspective. They have federal banks, they have state banks. It's all different in different parts, but we are regulated by APRA, so we meet them every couple of weeks to walk through exactly what the structure is of our balance sheet and our financials and all of those sorts of things. Obviously, APRA also looks after all of the other banks in Australia as well. So it's not that we would have less scrutiny than others. I would generally argue if you've got your money safe in an Australian bank, it's a safe investment. That's exactly the whole purpose of what APRA is there for, to do, is to protect the money of depositors. So it's interesting. I mean, that's not one of the key questions. We've got about 12,000 people on a waiting list. We generally don't get that question. It's a funny question, because generally it's like, when will you open? How are you ensuring that the whole ecosystem? I talked about, where do you get your funding from? All of that sort of stuff. Yeah. But I think we haven't really had a bank fail in Australia for a very very long time, and so it's not something that we're particularly concerned about. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
that's good.
I mean, just to add on, obviously the regulatory environment is quite stringent in Australia. It's a bit different to other jurisdictions, other countries. I mean, that's a given. I mean, the other thing is also, as far as the viability of this bank, I mean, we've got 1 million odd Muslims in the country. Yeah. One Islamic Bank.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed.
There are banks out there with very small communities, and they're surviving. Yeah. I mean, subhanAllah. I mean, I don't think that's an actual question that's going to be any issues for us as far as the Islamic Bank of Australia. So quite a large community, and it's probably the fastest, if not, I think it is the fastest growing community in the country as well. Yeah. So, it's got a bright future.
I think that's right. I mean, there's more than 100 what we call ADIs, and ADI is just an authorised deposit-taking institution. So that's credit unions, banks, building societies, anyone that can sort of take deposits. And a lot of them are just quite small, regionally based. They might be in Newcastle, or, a lot of them, as you would know, service just an individual industry, like they look after the health union or something like that, or nurses or whatever. Whereas, as you said, there's 1 million Muslim Aussies, and Islam is the fastest growing religion in Australia.
That's right.
So I think from a balance sheet stability perspective, obviously it's something that we track incredibly closely. That's what we do as bankers, but we would argue won't be an issue.
Yeah. So that's very, very reassuring to hear. Great to hear, gents. A question for you both. Now, putting your CEO caps on for a second. As a CEO, you're a leader of people. That's what it is. There are various CEOs who do their jobs magnificently well. There are some who are epic disasters. In your minds, from your own practices and your own experiences, as well as those who you've seen along their journey, what to you makes a great CEO? Start with yourself, Hakan.
Start with me.
Yeah.
I always say taking people on a journey. You got to get the buy-in of your people, all your stakeholders. I'm not talking about just your staff. I'm talking about all stakeholders. Have to buy in on your vision, your journey, and you got to take them on that journey. All right. That to me is the number one thing. I mean, there's a million other things you got to do as CEO. Okay. At the end of the day, you're running a lot of staff and a lot of clients and a lot of investors and so forth and so forth. It's endless. But ultimately, what it comes down to is, the management is one thing. It's the ride, the vision, taking people on that journey and making sure, and this is the most important part, that they're a part of that journey, not just talking. All right? Talk is cheap, as they always say. The old saying, talk is cheap. Okay? It's about actually bringing them on that journey and making them feel, not you. You may feel like, you're taking them on a journey. They gotta feel like they're on the journey. To me, this is the most important thing. Your staff, for example, let's just talk about staff for now. Your staff have to feel like they're part of something big. All right? If they feel like they're just there and just doing one piece of thing and everyone is taking all the glory and they're not on a ride, they don't see a future, they're not going to be there. And the most important asset in any organisation is the staff. That's what makes your company. Okay? Obviously, clients and all that is very important. They're all stakeholders. But the CEO's job is to make sure those stakeholders on all fronts are on the journey with you, and they're buying on your vision. You got to take them there with them, not just talk. To me, that's the most important thing.
Good point. Dean?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. It's all about people and having a good team, but it's also, as you articulated, it is articulating a vision, but it's also just having a clear plan so that everyone is completely aligned with what you want to do. I mean, one of the hardest things in business is actually, it's not so much what should we do, it's what shouldn't we do at the same time, and what you actually want to do is have people that are completely empowered to know what the end state is that we're trying to build towards, so that they're all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
Because what actually happens in organisations as they grow is people go off on tangents because they're not clear on, you don't have a united vision of like what this thing's going to look like. And so we have to have a lot of coordination meetings internally around, how does that look? Look, the other challenge that we have is we're starting, we're not running already. So it's quite different because you've got to build and you've just got to execute with perfection in terms of, we have an execution plan. I've got a brilliant head of projects who, I think it's Microsoft projects like 1,500 rows of individual initiatives that we have to go, we've done that now, we've got fraud working, we've got, it's like that. And so it's actually just being, focused on how do we make sure we've executed everything that we need to do in the right order, sort of really professionally. But to me, that's the main thing, as you said, it's clear vision, clear plan and roadmap to get there. And then you've just got to have amazing people that are united behind it. We're only quite small, but everyone's passionate. Like everyone believes in what we're trying to do. And so even when things get hard, which it always does in every business, you've got people that are like, no, let's all pull together and get there. So.
Now, boss man, on this topic, and Hejaz being a strategic partnership with IBA, obviously you met the people. I'm assuming you liked the people.
Absolutely.
And then you invested into the people
Extremely
in the
professional
project.
people, yes.
Dean, the CEO, I'm assuming he's staying as CEO, and you're not thinking funky business. What do you like about Dean?
Look, I wouldn't have gone into the position as strategic investment partner with the group if I didn't believe in the people, particularly the leadership group. And I've seen them, I've had discussions with them. The way it works at Hejaz, and you guys are familiar with this, obviously, is that I always get the best person for the job, regardless of what we were saying just before about a CEO, the qualities of a CEO. One of the other very important parts is to be fair. Okay, if any of your staff thinks you're not fair, you've lost your team. Yeah. Okay, it's so important. Okay, and I'm in no position, and I never have been, to put people into positions just out of for other reasons other than what I think they can bring to the table. Okay, so the first thing I saw with the Islamic Bank Australia group is that they've established, built this insanely good team, highly professional, highly qualified, and they're the team that can take this to the next level. Okay, as I said, you mentioned before, Dean's not a Muslim and he's running Islamic Bank and so forth. So I have no doubt the Muslim population and the Muslim community in Australia have no issues with that as long as they have the best product and the best organisation. Okay, it's about providing for their needs in the best possible way, and that's what Hejaz has been all about, and that's what I see with Islamic Bank of Australia. It's about getting the right people to build for the future. Okay, it's for the future generations of Australia. This will be around, inshallah, if Allah permits, hundreds of years from here. Yeah. And for now, we're custodians. Okay, so I see them as the perfect team to take this to the next level. And I have no issue, and as you're saying, about, do I see anyone in the team not being, no, it's a wonderful team. And great leadership there. The board's fantastic. There's no issues there. The whole intentions with the bank, I love it. The people there have the right intentions and the right passion. As we were building Hejaz, the same reason. We're not money driven. It's about providing for the community, and I see that in Islamic Bank of Australia as well.
Now, I have a bit of a silly question. A lot of the community sometimes be very critical of Muslim businesses. They usually say, if it's a Muslim-run company, then it's a bit dodgy, and blah blah blah. They all have those misconceptions. So, do you think having a non-Muslim up top will destroy those misconceptions?
Are you saying that if it was a Muslim that was CEO, they're not going to have trust?
A lot of people have these stereotypes that if Muslim-led organisation is going to be a bit of a sweatshop or something, They don't have the full conviction
Look,
of it. And you've seen it from the community as well. People have shots that Muslim run, so it's not going to be as efficient. So the people might think it's Islamic Bank, so it's not going to be as premium as the other banks. And we've seen that in the community as well.
Well, that's a good question, because one thing I've learned about community, being here all my life, is that you have both sides.
Yeah, that's true.
You have sides that say, it has to be a Muslim, right, that runs, because he'll understand the community and he'll do right intention, all that sort of stuff. And then you'll have the ones that you're saying about, a Muslim can't run it properly, all right?
Yeah.
And that's why, with Hejaz being a strategic partner as well in this now, and there are Muslims already working in the Islamic Bank of Australia.
Absolutely, more than half.
It's a team, and as I understand, Dean is the CEO of the company, and by right he'll run it fantastically. But he's not the sort of CEO to run with his own fist. You know what I mean? He's the sort of guy that will get opinions and collaborate and teamwork and all that sort of stuff. So this is a group thing. Okay, that's what we look at this banking project right now. It's for the community. It's got a mixture of great staff and great skills, Muslims and non-Muslims. So it's a collaborative effort, this one. Okay? That's the way we look at this thing. So the Muslims that say one thing and the Muslims that say the other thing, they've got a mix of both worlds here, I think. All right? They've got them both. And at the end of the day, what we want to build is something that's going to make them proud, number one, and it's going to be as good, if not better, than what they're getting right now.
100% agree.
I've actually never had any push, not face to face. No, I normally go to events, and I was speaking at the Multicultural Lead Fair in Sydney last weekend, and people come up, go, "Thank you so much for doing this." We're really no one's ever really gone, "Oh, you're not a Muslim." I mean, maybe they do it privately, who knows? But but no one's ever said it to my face anyway. They're normally actually incredibly supportive and going, "Please do this as fast as you can. We really want to do it." So,
so are you learning to say salam alaikum?
Yeah, and all that. Yeah, absolutely. No. So, I mean, I don't speak Arabic. I mean, one thing we're also conscious of is that, if you look at the demographics of the Islamic community in Australia, it's not all from one country. It's from everywhere, right? So everyone's speaking, I know obviously Arabic, but people speak Malaysian, Bahasa Malaysian, Bahasa Indonesian, Arabic, obviously. So we use English words largely. In fact, I think coming back to the education piece, I obviously was saying diminishing musharakas and ijaras and all that. Like, we actually try to avoid that language in a lot of our marketing stuff because people just don't necessarily know what it is.
I don't even know what it is.
No, indeed. So it's much more about, if we're going to go and do a murabaha, we'll call it cost plus profit, or we'll actually try and use language that explains the structures to people. But I'm trying a little bit. I speak a little bit of Vietnamese, but that doesn't help me so much.
Not too helpful.
I lived in Hanoi. Lived in Hanoi for 3 years, so that's right.
No, fair enough. And even from a regulatory perspective as well, I think APRA and all the other regulators as well, they want financial services institutions to really simplify their messaging to consumers. Don't assume knowledge, right? And even when you apply that Islamic overlay, don't try to sort of confuse the living daylights out of people. Really simplify it. Even explain complex Islamic concepts to them in a manner that they'll understand. Because at the end of the day, we can have lengthy disclosure documents, but they're pretty pointless if the end consumer has no idea what they're actually walking into.
I 100% agree, and that's we want fair and transparent contracts. That's a core part of.
It underpins.
Anyway. Absolutely, it underpins it anyway. That's right, and I think if you look at the best businesses in the world, they're simple businesses which have easy products that people understand. They're much more likely to acquire your product and services if they get it. So that's been a focus of us as well. Yeah.
The funny thing is in Arabic, your name means faith. Dean. So
I have heard that before.
Yeah, plus point there for you. Good stuff. Did you change your name for this, or what's going on there? Look, another silly question for you. I'm the guy that likes to ask weird questions. You guys gonna have a metal card? You guys planning on having
a metal card?
Metal card.
Yeah, I've got one of those in my wallet, but not from. No, look, that's a good question. I'll take that on notice. But
people love it, People
do love it. That's fine. We've certainly going to plan to have like a vertical style card that's looks pretty modern, but. Yeah. I'll have a look at that. That's fine. Maybe that could be part of the premium proposition.
Exactly, Premier Banking.
Yeah, that's
why
exactly
not?
Right. So.
Touching on Premier Banking, in this country, there's a lot of wealthy Muslims as well, and in the conventional banking, they get their private bankings and special treatment stuff, which I don't know if any of us here experienced that. Any option there, or is that down the line?
Yeah, look, I think frankly, it'll be down the line a little bit, not too far, but. the strategy that we've got is, as I think I said earlier, is we want to be a full service retail and business bank. So the top priority at the start is let's get out there with personal
100%.
banking products, retail banking products. So we're going to start with an everyday bank account, which you can literally download the app, scan your driver's license or your passport, doesn't matter where you are in Australia, instantly open your account, instant card, instant on your Apple Watch or whatever, and start banking straight away. We'll start with a term deposit product, which will pay profit share, so Madaraba based, and home finance. And then within 6 to 12 months, I just got my CEO hat on, just want to get that working and make sure it's all right. We'll then start doing business finance. So, you might be someone who owns a bakery and you need an oven or something like that. We'll do plant and equipment. We'll do residentially secured commercial stuff. Premium is up there as well, but it won't be in the first 6 months.
Right.
Let's get the product out to as many Muslim
100%.
Aussies as we can,
Yep.
start moving, and then we'll start offering. I mean, look, to be honest, that's kind of a higher level of service.
Okay.
You can actually, what you tend to find in these premium banking propositions is it's almost similar product that they get you. They almost end up with the same product at the end of the day. It's just that they've got a higher level of service that's associated with it.
Right.
Notwithstanding the fact that, this is one of the reasons we're excited about this partnership is the best businesses in the world aren't experts at everything. And so we want to be the experts at Islamic banking. We weren't planning to do superannuation. We weren't planning to do managed funds. Or ETFs, right? And that's why we've got such a great partnership here, I think, because we can rely on Hejaz and your knowledge of that. And then if we do start doing wealth or higher end premium stuff, those sorts of products potentially can come into line, and we can actually have a business where we're distributing your products, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Hejaz is distributing banking products.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Now, is IBA planning to be more digital, bricks and mortars?
100%
What's
digital.
the game plan there?
Yeah, digital. I mean, look, you wouldn't, if you were building any new bank, Islamic or not, you wouldn't build a bricks and mortar bank. I mean, we want to be a digital bank. I mean, as you know, there's Muslim Aussies are everywhere, like, heavily in Sydney and Melbourne, but actually 8.2% are in WA. I've got one of my staff is in Geraldton in WA. He's one of our business analysts.
How do you find that person?
He's an absolutely top gun business analyst. Ahmed, if you're watching, mate. Absolutely fantastic, and so that's literally why we wouldn't roll out branches everywhere. I mean, to be honest, even the big banks, if you look at other markets like the UK, they've closed 30% of branches because people don't use cash anymore. They don't go into branches anymore. They don't use ATMs anymore. For us, it's much more around. Doesn't matter where you are in Australia, download the app and you can do it all digitally. If you want to have a chat to us, we'll be able to video, like Skype and do appointments. But look, we probably will have a customer help centre in Sydney and in Melbourne. Just if people want to come in and have a chat to us and help them, particularly like home finance, people often like to talk to someone face to face for home finance, which is fine.
I was going to say, there are certain transactions that people simply feel more comfortable doing in person.
Yeah.
I think with a lot of our Muslim community, we've learned that through our experiences as well. They're largely a first home buyer market.
Correct. Yeah.
So if they're stepping into the market, it's their first time. They need someone to hold their hand and sort of help them navigate that journey. So I think they'd probably be keen to come in person and have those conversations. I want to also ask about, there's let's say not a large segment, but there's a material segment of the Muslim community who still use a lot of cash.
Yes.
Now, what happens to their banking? So if you don't have a bricks and mortar store or shopfront, how do they deposit cash?
Yes. So we're looking at doing deals with ATM providers around Australia so that they'll be able to actually go to smart ATMs and just deposit cash through those networks using their card.
Okay.
I mean, look, we're never going to get the reach to be able to put a branch in every town in Australia. Like, it's just not realistic to do, and you wouldn't do it anyway, frankly. But there's partnerships that you can do in the market now where you can get access to third-party ATMs where you just have to... So in the app, they'll just be able to go in or on our website and find out where's their local ATM, and they can go in and just use that. We're also having a look at like Bank at Post, which is, people can go to any post office then and make deposits and withdraw cash if they need to. But
that's great.
But as I say, you're quite right. I mean, there's a proportion of the community that does do that, but... the intention when we first launch is, you download the app and you'll be able to transfer money in, and then you obviously get your salary paid in and all of that.
Yeah.
You guys planning on having your own ATM? Pretty cool.
It's again, we probably. I mean, we're not rolling out a massive network of ATMs. Again, this is what's so funny. Banking is evolving so quickly in Australia that most of the big banks even are selling their ATM networks off. They're generally keeping the ones that are in the branch. We call them through the wall ATMs, where literally you go to a wall and put it into the branch because it's kind of built into the branch. But if it's a standalone ATM, like you would have seen in a convenience store or something like that, they're all getting sold because ATMs aren't necessarily as profitable anymore because people are just not using them for cash. So we wouldn't roll out a giant fleet of 1,000 ATMs across Australia or anything. If anything, we'll do partnerships. But customers will be able to go and withdraw their money from a number of banks for free without paying any fees.
I'm just putting my marketing hat on.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, right, you could put a whole bunch of ATMs in heavily dense Muslim. It's like a billboard for you right there.
Of course, no, absolutely, you could do that, and that's we'll consider that as part of the strategy. ATMs are actually quite expensive. They generally cost $10,000 or $20,000 per ATM
Scrap that idea.
to roll out. Like they're actually, and this is the problem. This is why people are selling their ATMs. People don't. That's a lot of $2, right? $2, to get that through, and you've got and clearing cash is really expensive as well. You've got to actually keep the cash in them, keep them stocked, and that's that's a really expensive cost as well. So that's why banking everywhere worldwide is going towards digital in terms of people doing.
I'm sure there are many of viewers today and listeners who are thinking about who, let's say they're from a migrant background, Muslims here who travel overseas quite frequently, who have family overseas, whatever the case may be. Will the IBA value proposition include an FX or foreign transfer, international banking?
Yes. Okay. So we'll look at that. So we will roll out FX at some point, whether we do it ourselves or with a partnership with someone else. But absolutely, I mean, remittance and FX is a big thing.
Yeah.
So the intention would be, again, if you've got your bank account with us, you'll be able to go into the app and do an international transfer with we're trying to target really good FX rates too, so that people feel really comfortable using us. So beat the big banks and try and. Sorry, you'll hear a bit of competitor. I came from sort of a second tier bank, so I'm very used to. Yeah. Let's give everyone get everyone a better deal, like bank better. Yeah. So that's part of what I actually want to do. It's not just about the Sharia compliance; it's the digital customer experience. But I actually want Islamic, Muslim Australians to feel better off. Yeah, feel better. Like we'll try and be. We're going to be price competitive. Like I want to be able to compete with everyone in the market. So I'm actually really hoping that we get a whole heap of non-Muslim Aussies that bank with us as well, because they just like the products, the nature of the products, and the structures, and that they think we will offer better banking. So hopefully.
Yeah, boss man, you're a bit of an ambitious guy. Like sometimes too ambitious.
There's no such thing as too ambitious.
You have wild ideas sometimes. Do you have any ambition for the bank that's, I guess, not in their roadmap? Just off the cuff. It doesn't have to be like a formal chat. I'm sure you have something crazy.
Are you trying to stir up my passion?
I would love to hear what you would love for the bank to do down the line. Off the cuff.
We don't want to disclose all about future possible plans, but at the end of the day,
maybe disclose the one that's not going to work.
No, there's no such thing as not going to work. Right? Everything will work as long as Allah permits. But at the end of the day, my intentions right from the start was for every single Muslim in the world, not just Australia, to go over Haram. Okay, that was my intention, and that remains my intention. So that means that the Islamic Bank of Australia with the strategic partnership with Hejaz, we're providing comprehensive offering to the Islamic community now. We don't want to remain there. Okay, essentially we want the whole world to be given this opportunity.
You want to take this to global?
We want to take everything global. I think that we are. I genuinely think this, and this. I'm hoping I'm not biased saying this, but I genuinely think that what Australia's going to have, hopefully once everything's up and running, is going to be one of a kind in the world. It's going to be the best Islamic finance offering in the planet. Comprehensive, I'm talking about, from start to finish. Okay, and I think that model should be taken all over the world, and every Muslim in the world should have access to something like that. And I believe in that. But of course, we need the Muslims to unite behind this.
Do you think, because Islamic Bank Australia is from Australia, like a Western country, would that make it a better proposition compared to other, banks, Islamic banks from, Muslim countries? Because Western countries are seen more strict and more superior in a lot of people's eyes. And like we said, APRA is extremely strict in a lot of regulations and whatnot. So do you think Islamic Bank Australia could rival those Islamic banks from, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, all these big boys out there?
Well, you sort of answered your own question before that when you said that a lot of Muslims don't trust Muslims, and
that's true.
Well, you're saying that now all of a sudden you bring a bank from the Middle East or somewhere in the subcontinent, whatever the case is, to the Western countries. Other Muslims in those Western countries are going to trust that bank. or they're going to trust a bank like Islamic Bank of Australia. Now, ultimately, we all know, and I think most of the people around the world know that Australia is, anyone that knows anything knows that Australia is highly regulated, if not the most regulated country in the world, as far as financial system is concerned. We do think that the prestige, the regulations, the robustness, and the product offering that we can provide here, if we take it around the world, I think it'll get traction. I think we'll get a lot of traction around. I think it's more credible, okay? And then, of course, if you combine that with all wealth products and everything else and provide a comprehensive offering, I have no doubt that it'll take a lot more of the market than normal bank out of some other jurisdiction.
Right. Now, Dean, I have a question for you. And I think this is a question that I think a lot of people would like answered. Because for me, I'd even like to know. And that is, why haven't conventional banks in Australia right now have some sort of an Islamic finance function?
Yeah.
Considering how rapidly growing the Islamic world is.
Look, that's a really good question. I mean, NAB is the closest, I believe.
Right.
They've got an Islamic commercial window where they, and we know them fairly well, Imran at NAB, but no one else has really done it. I mean, I think there's a couple of reasons. First of which, I think the scale has not necessarily always been there. I mean, Islam's growing really fast in Australia. I think it's up to 3.2% of the population now. But if you went back 10 or 15 years, it wasn't anything like that. It was half the size. So I think there's scale there. But I also think if you think like a big bank, it's their propositions are very much targeted around being good to the whole Australian market. It's not sticking a window down the end of every single branch that you walk in. I mean, maybe if you were doing it, you'd do it in specific geographic locations, I suspect. But none of them have sort of decided to do that. We've heard rumours that a couple of them have considered it, but it's almost been considered a bit niche,
Right.
which is a horrific word for this. But I think a few of them have got the impression it's like, look, our proposition is really just to run conventional banking product. We're not expert at doing Islamic banking products. We don't necessarily have the distribution network to do it. The other thing you've got to think about when you're running a big business is kind of your marketing spend, and if you run advertising above the line, which we mean sort of through television and radio and that sort of thing, you hit the whole community. You don't just hit people of the Islamic faith, and so this is why Hejaz, obviously you're experts at doing marketing out there, but I think it probably just doesn't make sense for a big bank to offer it, or it hasn't historically. Maybe, I mean, if I was a big bank, I would certainly be looking at it now, but we got there first. So.
Yeah.
And I think we can obviously tailor our entire business right around serving. I won't just say serving people of the Islamic faith, because as I said, we actually want everyone to bank with us, because we'll be open to everyone. But certainly we can ensure that our products are focused and everyone knows. The other problem that you have with the big banks is we have a specific proposition, which is we want to keep the whole ecosystem clean. Like we don't want to. If it was a big bank trying to do it, you could have had money deposited from an alcohol company or a gambling company or something like that, and it goes into treasury and then it's handed out. Yeah. Oh, look, this is halal money from the window down the end. Yeah. Whereas we try and keep the whole ecosystem clean, so the whole funding profile and all of that as well. And you just can't do that at the big banks. So.
Yeah, and that's fundamental to Sharia compliance, having that quarantine, those silos in place to ensure that there is no sort of commingling of funds and all that type of stuff. So it's really, really important.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, the phone's going off today. Huh?
Yeah, it's big day today.
Big day.
Big day today.
Did you announce?
Lots of people want to know about this partnership.
Really? Is it public right now?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
It'll be released.
Surely.
Well, at the time of this podcast.
Obviously, by the time the podcast comes out, yes.
Breaking news, guys. Now you said you want like non-Muslims coming in as well. So what incentive would a Jeffrey Goldstein, right? That's non-Muslim. What would convince him to come to bank? Why would he want to come to Islamic Bank Australia?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, as I said, we're going to try to be price competitive with other banks anyway. So there's always that. But, we take a really nice corporate social responsibility lens, I think, to what we do. And, I actually think that the reason people use particular companies now is much more, it's less just about products and services, which are very commoditized. It's much more around, is this a company that I actually want to do with, and do they do the right thing by the world?
Values.
And yeah, it's completely right. Yeah. So, and that's why, as I said, obviously we won't bank any of those haram industries, but I think if we take it further, and the tagline that we actually used internally for the bank was banking that feels good, like banking that does the right thing. And that's why, we've made a whole heap of donations. For example, we've planted trees in bushfire areas. We've bought food packs in Afghanistan. We've, supported homeless shelters. And so it's not just around not doing the bad things, but for us, it's actually how to improve the Australian community as well. And so we took a view as well as we don't just want to be an Islamic bank. We want to be very much an Australian bank, because we at the end of the day, we're all, we're in Australia. And so we want to be helping local Australian community groups and things as well. So I think if we get that message out there, I think the nature of the products is really nice too. If you start talking about the fact that on term deposits, instead of just getting a rate that the bank decides you should earn, it's actually more about, we'll share the profits. If the bank does better, you'll do better. If the bank doesn't do as well, you'll do as well. I mean, I did a radio interview in Perth not long ago on one of the big talkback stations there, and was just explaining how Islamic banking works, and afterwards the producer said the switchboard has gone nuts. People are so excited. They think this is absolutely brilliant, because it's the bank and the customer at the end of the day are sharing as partners in the risk reward trade off that's associated with it, and we've never had that in Australia before.
Well, it's fair, right?
It's fair. It's just fairer.
People want a fairer deal. And
it's a fairer deal.
And that notion of fairness resonates with everybody.
Absolutely.
Muslim or non-Muslim or anybody.
That's exactly right, and that's why I think we will attract people, from outside the Islamic faith as well.
Has there been interest?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, our waiting list. We have people like often Aussies, like expats that have gone to the Middle East maybe, and they've lived there for 5 or 6 years working for a company, and then they've come back to Australia and they've just said, look, we just really liked the ethical nature of the products that we were dealing with over there in offshore, and when you're opening your doors. So
what would be the difference between Islamic Bank Australia? I'll ask you this, boss man. What would be the difference between Islamic Bank Australia and the other Islamic finance providers out there?
Well, it's a bank.
So we can raise deposits. That's probably the key difference, right? So it's as I say, you can't. If you want to open finance, you can get an Australian credit license, and you can obviously, it's your money, right? If you want to lend it out, or you fund it from somewhere else, but taking a deposit off someone is a special level of trust, right? Because we have to look after it, and that's why APRA regulates it so tightly. And that's also why it's really hard to get a banking license. I mean, we had to submit. And this is absolutely what should happen. We had to submit more than 1,000 pages of documentation. I think 80 different documents to APRA. Right. Everything from whistleblower policies, so we can ensure if one of my staff does the wrong thing, that there's a protection around it, to financial forecasts. It's a really extensive list, and that's why we meet with APRA so regularly. But that's the difference, right? So you've got these, you've got other non-bank financial institutions that have done Islamic finance in the past, and they've done an incredible job, serving the community. We're part of the community, so we're not about bashing others or anyone, but that's what we bring. We'll be a bank, so we can take deposits and obviously use them and look, one of the advantages of that is from a funding perspective, it means we can basically develop up our own funding and sort of set term deposit rates and those sorts of things where we need to, and aim to be competitive with the Big Four.
Yeah.
So.
That's exciting.
I mean, just on all that, just to add on to that, I always believed, and this is my opinion, others may or may not agree with that. At the end of the day, all these other financial institutions, non-bank financial institutions, was always a means of trying to get to the bank. That's what I always felt, with all the other players and even ourselves. Ultimately, I think everyone knows that it was well documented that we want to get an ADI license as well. And that's why I said, it's best that we just partner up in a way, rather than try and, get to and so forth. But ultimately, all these Islamic financial service providers, as Dean said just before, they've done a great job. But ultimately, it was all about trying to get to the end game for the Islamic community. Because we all know that the bank has certain things, as Dean just outlined, that others can't. And if the Islamic community needs, the comprehensive offering, the only way to do that is through an ADI license. So that's what it brings to the table.
Yeah.
So once this Islamic Bank fully operational, is there still an opportunity for the other Islamic finance providers? Is there still a market for that, or do you think the Muslim community will be like, there's a bank here, why go anywhere else?
Well, I think that ultimately what comes down to is what the community. I mean, time will tell, wouldn't it? Ultimately, when you've got a bank that's providing comprehensive offering that hopefully that we're intending to do, it's up to the individuals in the community to decide on what they want. Ultimately, if they want to go to the bank for a more comprehensive offering, they can do that. But if they have a personal connection with the various providers, they've already got an established relationship with them, they want to stay there, that's fine as well. Ultimately, the market will dictate, as that's what market force is all about. The market will dictate the outcome. Okay. But again, it's about what's best for the community, and that's what we're here, and that's why we're sitting down right now. It's what's best for the community. That's what we try to build here.
No, I think exciting times are coming. Obviously, once it hopefully launches, I think there'll be a lot of media attention to it. It's never been done before, and I think good times are coming, like I mentioned. Before we wrap things up, do you guys have any last words? Any messages you guys have to the community?
I could just say, look, I genuinely love this community. I genuinely love this community. I have a lot of passion. I grew up in this community, obviously, in Australia, and I feel excited for them. I genuinely do. I feel like finally they're going to get something that's going to actually do to get the job done from proper, like a comprehensive offering. I really believe that. I think the community should really band together for this. Let's not play politics on this one. I just feel like this is for the community. And I feel so excited. I feel so happy for the community on this one.
Yeah.
And I have, I just feel like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is behind us on this one. I just feel that way. I feel good about this, and I feel great about this partnership as well. And I feel like, you know what, the community, they haven't had this, and they've gone through so many issues. They had, some of them went to, non-Islamic places. Let's give what they want. And inshallah, they all can get it. That's what I just want. I just want the best for them.
Yeah, 100% agree. Dean?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we're really excited as well, I think, about this partnership, because I think it just means that, we've had really good momentum. We've got a really good plan, and, we're hoping to launch next year, which will be fantastic. But, this partnership just makes absolute sense, because we can work together and ensure that we're helping the community together. And we both, I've been really impressed with the Hejaz team as well, obviously, in terms of the people that I've met, and obviously, Hejaz came up to Sydney to our office. We're sort of Sydney based. You're obviously Melbourne based, so which we won't hold that against you. We were. But no, I echo what you said. I mean, I think it's going to be a great partnership, but it just feels like we've got momentum now. We'll get through to the finish line now, and I think so many people in Australia have dreamed for more than 10 years about having a bank, an Islamic bank in Australia. And there's a lot of work to do, but inshallah we get there. So
You said inshallah.
No, he does. No,
that's impressive. You said it in a very authentic way as well. I like that.
It's really
Muzammil, you Sharia advisor. What's your last words on this one?
Oh, look, I think just to echo the sentiments of the gents, I think it's a very, very exciting times. I think this community has, for a long time, been starved of being able to reach its true financial potential because of the inability to find the right vehicle to get there. Yeah. I think, I shared with Dean earlier, I think the first time we met, you meet so many brilliant people in our community who have great ideas, who have a lot of passion, and are simply unable to execute on those dreams. It could be entrepreneurial ambitions, it could be business strategies, it could be growth of their practices, or whatever it is, because they simply don't have the capital to be able to back themselves in. They don't have a trusted institution that they can sort of, say, look, you know what, this institution is behind me. They're going to support me financially. Let me go ahead and implement my strategies, and they'll be here to see me through that journey. And I think that this will be a game changer for our community for generations to come.
Yeah,
100%. And on that note, you being my father, I got a small gift for you.
Really?
To celebrate this little...
Is this your first gift ever in your whole life?
God, I bought you some expensive gifts, man. I got you a small gift. Maybe get that, try it on, see if you like it live on camera, if you don't mind.
Oh, wow, what?
Oh, no.
I've always dreamed of having this.
Chuck it on, see.
The cancer's spreading.
See how it fits.
And now we have two.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Honestly, it looks
now I
better
know
on
how it
video.
is to be you now.
Oh, there you go.
Dean, sorry,
This is actually great.
I don't
Dean,
think...
No, I'm happy to pass. That's fine.
Then he goes around telling everybody that it's for the lights. It's the,
right.
It's
Yeah.
because
It actually does look better, though.
it's absolute gibberish.
It actually,
He's trying
it
to
actually helps with the
Iron,
lights.
this Iron Man
There
look.
you go.
It actually does help the
helps with the
lights.
light.
It's the Iron Man look. That's all it is. Robert Downey Jr. 2.0.
Iron
Yeah,
Man
exactly.
$300 million poorer. But look, guys, it's been a great chat, and it's exciting times ahead, like we all mentioned, and the community is looking forward to this. You said 12,000 people signed up, and on the Hejaz side, we have 15,000 people there excited for this too.
Yeah.
So once this launches, I think it's going to be a mammoth, and I'm sure you guys will have a nice launch event. I'm hoping because it'll be solid, and hopefully I could arrange that and BMC because I have a little. Anyways, that's different time for a talk. Look, Dean, thank you for
Pleasure.
coming on.
Great to come on.
And inshallah, we hope the best for you.
Thank you.
And we hope the best for you as well, boss
Thank
man.
you.
And I'll see you upstairs. Take care, everyone.